Hey there, curious minds and adventurous souls. Welcome back to another episode that promises to take you on a journey of epic proportions. Today, we're uncovering the untold stories of Portuguese sailors, the real pioneers of the sea who shaped our world in ways you won't believe. Ever wondered who were the first Europeans to sail to Asia and discover Brazil? Hint, it's not who you think. If you're as excited as I am to go on this maritime quest, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. So, let's go back. Way back to a time when the world map was mostly a blank canvas, filled with mysteries, imagined sea monsters, and legends of untold riches. We're diving into the age of exploration, where the stakes were sky high and the players were nothing short of legendary. Now get ready for a name that's as monumental as the pyramids: Henry the Navigator. Who was this Henry, you ask? Oh, just the son of King John I of Portugal. No biggie. Born in 1394, Henry had royal blood coursing through his veins, but he wasn't the type to sit around in a palace and wait for life to happen. This guy had ambition that made the mountains look like molehills. The most amazing part? Henry managed to convince his dad, yes, the king, to fund expeditions to explore unknown lands. Imagine convincing your parents to invest in your lemonade stand, but on a much, much grander scale. While Henry never donned a captain's hat and sailed the treacherous seas himself, he was far from a bystander. He was more like the director of a blockbuster film. He founded a school of navigation at Sagres, where he brought together the era's most brilliant minds in cartography, astronomy, and shipbuilding. His investments in ship design and map-making were the kind that changed the game. He was the guy backstage, setting up the stage for superstars like Vasco da Gama, Pedro Álvares Cabral, and Bartolomeu Dias, three tough explorers we will put an eye on in this video. Henry sponsored expeditions down the west coast of Africa, moving the Portuguese flag further down the map and edging closer to finding a sea route to Asia. Now on to the stars of the show: Vasco da Gama, Pedro Álvares Cabral, and let's not forget the famous Bartolomeu Dias. These explorers were like the action heroes of their time, living life on the edge. Vasco da Gama was one of the first to successfully navigate a sea route to Asia around the Cape of Good Hope. This was a monumental task that involved overcoming dangerous waters, battling scurvy, and surviving pirate attacks. Bartolomeu Dias, on the other hand, deserves recognition for being a pioneer in his own right. He was the first European explorer to round the southern tip of Africa in 1488, opening up the sea route to Asia. His daring voyage laid the foundation for future explorations and trade routes. Pedro Álvares Cabral, the Portuguese explorer who is credited with discovering Brazil in the year 1500, had his own adventurous story. However, the discovery was more of an accident than a planned expedition. Cabral had been trying to follow da Gama's route to India, but veered so far off track that he ended up in Brazil. While it might have looked like a mistake, it was actually a happy accident. Imagine stumbling upon a hidden treasure chest when you're lost in a maze. That was Brazil for Portugal. All three sailors navigated uncharted territories, discovered new lands, and forever changed the course of history, shaping the way we see the world today. They were part of a cadre of daring explorers who had the courage, wit, and audacity to plunge into the unknown. So let's dive in and uncover the incredible stories of those amazing sailors in epic detail. Moving on to one of the heavy hitters in the lineup of Portuguese explorers, let's talk in detail about Vasco da Gama. This guy was like the Cristiano Ronaldo of navigation. Both hailed from Portugal, and both made global waves. Born in 1460 or 1469, hey, even superstars have mysteries. In town named Sines, Portugal, Vasco grew up with the salty sea breeze filling his lungs and dreams of uncharted territories filling his mind. Now, did you know that Vasco da Gama was not the first choice for his famous expedition to India? That's right, folks. It's like if your favorite band was the second choice to headline a music festival and then they stole the show. He was appointed by King Manuel I after the initial candidate had a falling out with the royal court. Drama alert! And if you're into family business, here's something cool. Vasco's father, Pedro da Gama, was supposed to make the journey to India, but for unknown reasons, some say, due to age or political discord, he never got the chance. So, in a way, Vasco was picking up the family torch. When it comes to his expeditions, Vasco had his share of highs and lows. In his first voyage, he did the unthinkable. He sailed around the Cape of Good Hope in southern Africa, becoming one of the first Europeans to reach India by sea. Imagine that! Dodging storms, combating scurvy, and even having a run-in with local rulers. The journey was a roller coaster worthy of a Hollywood script. But hey, life at sea wasn't all smooth sailing. On his second voyage to India, Vasco used a bit of, let's call it, strong-arming tactics to impose Portuguese power. The expedition led to a conflict with the ruler of Calicut, an important trading post, resulting in the infamous Calicut massacre of 1500. Definitely a dark chapter in his story. If you want more about this part of history, write me in the comment. Despite the highs and lows, Vasco da Gama's voyages broke barriers and changed the course of history. Before him, Asia was this far-off land that Europeans could only dream about. After him, it was a reachable destination, changing trade, politics, and even diets. Hello, new spices, forever. Now, we've been talking about Vasco da Gama's public life, but what about the man behind the sailor? Like, did he have a special someone waiting for him at home? You bet he did. He was married to Catarina de Ataide, and the couple had 6 sons. Can you imagine the sea stories he must have shared at the dinner table? And oh, if you're wondering whether he struck it rich with all these overseas voyages, the answer is yes. In fact, King Manuel I rewarded him generously, including bestowing upon him the title of Count of Videgueira. Talk about a stellar LinkedIn profile. But like any epic saga, Vasco da Gama's story also had an end. He passed away in Cochin, India in 1524. Ironically, he was in India as a Portuguese viceroy, appointed to set things straight and enforce Portuguese interests. In the end, it was not the turbulent seas but an illness, likely malaria, that claimed his life. Though his journey on Earth came to an end, the impact of his voyages never truly died. His navigational routes continued to be used for centuries, and he left an indelible mark not just on maps, but on the very fabric of global trade and interaction. Next on our radar is Pedro Álvares Cabral, the guy famously, or should I say, controversially credited with discovering Brazil. But hold on a second. This isn't your ordinary tale of sailor sets off and finds new land. Oh no, the plot thickens, my friends. Born in 1467 or 1468 in Belmonte, Portugal, Cabral came from a well-to-do family. Yep, he was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and it wasn't just for show. His family had strong connections with the royal court, which is like the ultimate networking party of the 15th century. Now, here's a juicy tidbit. Did you know that some people speculate that Cabral didn't just discover Brazil, but that he actually knew it was there? Yep. There's a theory that the Portuguese were already aware of Brazil's existence, but kept it hush-hush. Why? To dodge competition with Spain, of course. Ah, the sneaky games nations play. When Cabral returned to Portugal after his journey to Brazil and India, you'd think he'd be met with parades, feasts, and maybe even a statue or two in his honor. But guess what? None of that happened. Seriously, not even confetti. Here's the tea. Cabral's voyage to India was marred by setbacks and controversies. For starters, his fleet lost several ships and many lives, including that of Bartolomeu Dias, a respected explorer who had previously rounded the Cape of Good Hope. Plus, Cabral's dealings in Calicut, India weren't exactly peaceful. He ended up bombarding the city after diplomatic tensions escalated. Ouch. With this baggage, Cabral's return was hardly the triumphant victory lap people had envisioned. King Manuel I was not pleased, and the court's opinion on Cabral cooled faster than a summer drink on a hot day. Also, don't forget the era's political landscape. Portugal was heavily invested in its India voyages, which were seen as the crown jewels of their sea expeditions. Brazil was more like a new mysterious land that they didn't yet fully grasp the value of. So finding Brazil was cool, but it didn't hold the same weight as establishing a trade route to India. The bottom line is, despite his monumental discovery of Brazil, Cabral returned under a cloud of complicated geopolitics, lost lives, and unmet expectations. It was a mixed bag, and sadly for him, it didn't translate into the hero's welcome he might have hoped for. As for the matters of the heart, Cabral was a one-woman man. He married Isabel de Castro, a lady-in-waiting to Queen Eleanor. It seems like being close to the throne was a family trait, but alas, Cabral's story comes to an end, as all stories must. His date of death is generally considered to be in 1520, although the details are sketchy. What's not sketchy, though, is his contribution to history. He might not have had the same star power as Vasco da Gama, but hey, Brazil is a pretty big feather in his cap. Bartolomeu Dias is another luminary in the galaxy of Portuguese explorers, and his story packs a punch of its own. Trust me, his tale has got suspense, thrill, and a plot twist or two. Lights, camera, action. Bartolomeu Dias, the man who first rounded the Cape of Good Hope. Born in Portugal around 1450, he was set to be a star in the golden era of Portuguese exploration. Bartolomeu had maritime exploration in his DNA. His father, Dias, was also an explorer. Ah, the apple didn't fall far from the tree, did it? Now let's get into the drama. The Cape of Good Hope wasn't initially named that. Dias originally called it the Cape of Storms because of the treacherous weather he faced. Yikes. But later, King John II of Portugal rebranded it to the Cape of Good Hope because it signified a route to India and the East. Talk about a PR makeover. And here's an interesting nugget. Bartolomeu Dias was an early adopter of the caravel, a type of ship that became the smartphone of the maritime world. Everyone had to have one. With its ability to sail against the wind, the caravel was a game-changer, folks. Are you asking what caravel is? All right, let's talk tech, but make it 15th century style. The caravel was no ordinary ship. It was the epitome of maritime innovation. This vessel was sleeker, faster, and more maneuverable than any of its bulky predecessors. It's like going from a flip phone to a smartphone. Once you've made the switch, there's no turning back. So, what made the caravel special? For starters, its design allowed it to sail closer to the wind, a feature that was practically revolutionary back then. Imagine driving a car that uses less fuel but goes faster. That's the kind of breakthrough we're talking about. The caravel had what's called lateen sails, which are triangular-shaped sails that allowed for better control and navigation. Think of it as the power steering of yesteryears. The ship's compact size made it ideal for exploration. It could navigate shallow waters and treacherous bays, kind of like an SUV tackling off-road conditions with grace. And here's a bit of trivia for you. The caravel could be operated by a small crew, so not only was it a better ship, but it was also cost-effective. Talk about a win-win situation. Bartolomeu Dias was one of the early adopters of this fantastic piece of naval technology. His expedition that rounded the Cape of Good Hope was made possible because of the caravel's unparalleled abilities. It's like having a supercar for a history-making road trip. All right, now that we've dropped some knowledge about the incredible caravel ships, let's circle back to wrap up the tale of Bartolomeu Dias. Remember him? Our caped crusader of the Cape of Good Hope? So, quick fact check for you. Pedro Álvares Cabral actually embarked on his expedition with a whopping 13 ships. Yes, you heard that right, 13. And guess who was invited to this maritime party? None other than our old friend Bartolomeu Dias. Now, brace yourselves, because this story takes a bit of a heartbreaking turn. On this expedition, our hero Bartolomeu faced the ultimate plot twist. And spoiler alert, it doesn't have a happy ending. This voyage was monumental for many reasons, but it was also a journey marred by misfortune. A handful of ships never even made it to their final destination. Picture it like the most extreme season of Survivor, only with ocean storms instead of tribal councils. Out of that squad of 13 ships that set sail for the great unknown, only a mere 4 to 5 vessels returned to their home port in Portugal. The journey had taken its toll, both in ships and in lives. And here comes the heartbreaking finale. Bartolomeu Dias, the hero who once triumphed over the Cape of Good Hope, faced a cruel twist of fate. He was one of the casualties of Cabral's ill-fated expedition to India, perishing when his ship sank near the Cape of Good Hope, the very cape he had rounded years earlier. Talk about poetic irony. Bartolomeu Dias didn't make it, but his legacy lives on, immortalized through the new maritime routes he helped pioneer. So, the next time you see a world map, just remember the sacrifices and the daring courage of men like Dias, but also many others, who ventured into the unknown to make that map just a bit more complete. And there we have it, adventurers. We've sailed the high seas, survived storms, and unlocked some of history's most closely guarded secrets. I hope you enjoyed this epic journey through time as much as I did. If you found this video enlightening or even just plain entertaining, go ahead and smash that like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you won't miss out on future expeditions into the unknown. Do you have any suggestions for future topics you'd like to see us explore? Feel free to drop them in the comments below. We're all ears. And who knows, your idea might just be our next big adventure. Until our next journey, take care and keep exploring.